My name is Julia Bennett, and I run a company most people in my family still call a hobby. At Christmas dinner, Olivia raised her glass of Cabernet and asked, "Still doing your little app thing?" Jules? The way she said it wasn't curiosity, it was entertainment. I told her it wasn't an app. It was a healthcare analytics platform that hospitals use to predict patient outcomes. But her smirk said she'd already decided what was true. She laughed softly, swirling her wine. Right. The startup. 6 years now? No investors. No exit. No future? I felt every eye at the table flick toward me, waiting to see if I'd defend myself. I just smiled and said, "It's going well." She leaned back, satisfied, as if my restraint confirmed her version of the story. The air smelled like roasted turkey and quiet humiliation. Our mother tried to soften the moment, saying, "Olivia just wants the best for you, honey." But I could see the approval in her eyes aimed only at my sister. I looked across the table at Olivia, her polished hair, her diamond engagement ring catching the light, and said evenly, "She wants to feel taller. That's different." The silence that followed was almost kind. Underneath the table, my phone buzzed with a calendar reminder, January 12. Series B pitch. Evercrest Capital. I glanced at the screen and then back at Olivia, who was still smiling like she'd won. She didn't know that the man sitting next to her, her fiancé, Ethan Walker, was the one arranging that very meeting. And she had no idea that the little app she mocked tonight was the company his firm was desperate to invest in. Olivia set her glass down and said, "You know, Jules, some people just aren't built for risk. It's not shameful to admit you need a stable paycheck." Her tone carried that false kindness that always meant condescension. I said evenly, "I'm not afraid of risk. I'm afraid of living a life that feels like a spreadsheet." She tilted her head, amused. Funny. Because spreadsheets pay for houses, cars, and weddings. Mom gave her a warning look. "Olivia." Not tonight. But Olivia's smile only deepened. "I'm just saying. At some point, the fantasy has to end." I met her gaze. The fantasy ended 6 years ago, when I started building something real. The table went quiet again. The kind of silence that made forks pause in midair. Dad cleared his throat. But even he looked uneasy, like he didn't want to choose a side. Olivia seethed, as if exhausted by my stubbornness. "Jules, I know you think you're changing the world, but real success has structure teams, capital, measurable returns. That's what I do every day." I leaned back. "And yet, for someone so busy measuring returns, you seem invested in devaluing mine." Her fiancé shifted uncomfortably beside her. "She's just trying to help," he said. I looked at him. "She's trying to feel superior. It's different." Mom's eyes softened toward me, but her words still betrayed habit. "Your sister worked hard to get where she is. She only wants to guide you." I smiled faintly. "I don't need a guide. Mom, I just need you to stop treating me like a project." Olivia laughed quietly. "Don't be so dramatic. Not everyone can be the golden child." I met her eyes. "You're right. Some of us had to build our own crown." 8. The tension lingered like smoke, invisible but choking. Olivia took a sip of wine and said, "You always twist things to sound profound. Maybe that's your real talent." I said, "Maybe it's yours to mistake arrogance for insight." Her smile faltered for a second, and I felt that small, private shift of power, fleeting but undeniable, around us. The conversation resumed in fragments, yet no one truly spoke again. Inside, I already knew what she didn't, that the proof she demanded was coming. I wouldn't need to defend myself or justify a single number. Soon enough, she would see her reflection in the mirror she built, the one she used to measure my worth, and it would finally crack. After dinner, I stepped out onto the patio for air. The night sharp and quiet. Behind me, I heard footsteps. And then Ethan's voice. Low, but deliberate. Julia, can I ask you something? I turned, keeping my tone neutral. You just did. He exhaled, eyes searching mine. What's the name of your company again? I hesitated for a second, then said, Vital Metrics. His expression shifted instantly. Wait, Vital Metrics? As in the healthcare data company? I nodded once. That's right. His brow furrowed. Jesus. We've been trying to get a meeting with Vital Metrics for months. Evercrest wants in on your Series B. I met his shock with silence. You knew that? He asked quietly. I did. He ran a hand over his face. Pacing once. Does Olivia know? No. I said. Why not? I looked out at the dark garden. Because she wouldn't believe me. She decided years ago that nothing I do is real unless it fits her version of success. He stopped pacing, his voice softer now. So you're just going to let her walk blind into this? I said. I'm not letting her do anything. I'm done managing her illusions. Ethan stared at me, torn between professional instinct and personal loyalty. You realize what this means, right? She's going to find out in that meeting. I nodded. She's going to find out that her fiancé is negotiating a multi-million-dollar investment in her sister's joke company. He shook his head slowly. That's brutal, I said. It's honest. He looked at me differently then, not as Olivia's sister, but as the person holding the cards. You really built this from nothing? I met his eyes. From silence. That's where everything real begins. For a long moment, neither of us spoke, the truth settling between us like cold air. When he finally said, You're not going to warn her. Are you? I answered. No. She built the mirror she stares into. It's time she sees what's actually looking back. It's back in San Francisco. The office lights were already on when I arrived. Marcus looked up from his laptop and said, Evercrest confirmed. They'll be here Friday at 2. I nodded, setting my coffee down. Good. Make sure the projections are updated and the financials are clean. He watched me for a second, then asked, Are you nervous? I said. No. I've been preparing for this meeting for 6 years. It's not way. He grinned. And the part where their partner happens to be your sister's fiancé, still pretending that's not a thing? I glanced at him. It's not a thing if I don't let it be. He leaned back, amused. You're either fearless or insane, I said. Both usually work in business. The truth was, the thought of Ethan walking into my office carried a certain symmetry I couldn't ignore. Some reckonings don't need invitation, they arrive right on schedule. Later that day, Jennifer, my CFO, stopped by with a folder. We're solid, she said. Revenue, retention, client pipeline, it's all bulletproof. I nodded. We're asking for $28 million for 14%. That values us at $200 million post-money. She smiled. You know your number's cold, I said. Numbers don't shake when people underestimate them. She raised an eyebrow. And if Olivia calls before the meeting, she won't. I replied. She's too busy believing her version of me. The next morning, I stood in the conference room, rehearsing the pitch one last time. Marcus adjusted the display on the main screen. Everything's ready. Presentation loaded. Coffee hot, I said. Good. Keep the introductions brief. I want the data to speak first. He studied me. You want her to find out through him, don't you? I met his eyes. No, I want her to find out through my work. As I spoke, the city outside reflected across the glass wall steel. Light. Motion. Everything I'd built existed in that reflection. Waiting for the moment when silence would finally sound like proof, the door opened at exactly 2 o'clock. And James from Evercrest walked in with 2 partners behind him. Yulia, thank you for having us, he said warmly. We've been looking forward to this. I smiled. So have we. Please. Take a seat. Then Ethan stepped through the doorway, his eyes locking on mine. For a second, his face drained of color, and the room froze around us. I said evenly, "Good afternoon, Mr. Walker. Welcome to Vital Metrics. Donal." James gestured between us. "Do you two already know each other?" I replied. "Briefly, at a family event." Ethan cleared his throat. "Yes. Small world. Smaller than we think," I said. The words hung there for a beat too long. Then I clicked the remote, and the first slide lit up behind me. Vital Metrics uses predictive analytics to optimize hospital operations and patient outcomes. Last year, we generated $22 million in revenue and processed over 2 million patient records. They wanted to start. James leaned forward. "Your retention rate is impressive, 97%. That's rare." I nodded. "We measure trust by renewal, not applause." Sarah, the third partner, said, "And your pipeline for next year?" 3 hospital networks in final negotiations. Projected revenue, 40 million. She smiled. Strong trajectory. Ethan stayed silent. Eyes on the numbers he'd probably seen 100 times in spreadsheets. But never in my voice. I continued. "We're seeking 28 million for 14% equity, valuing us at 200 million post-money." James said. "Fair and realistic. Due diligence would confirm it. But we're already impressed," I replied. "We value partnership, not just capital. Growth means alignment." Ethan finally spoke. "You've built something remarkable." I met his gaze. "You'll have to tell Olivia that." James frowned slightly. "Olivia?" I smiled. "My sister. She works at your firm." "Doesn't she?" Ethan shifted. "Yes," he said quietly. "She does." The tension rippled through the room before settling into silence. James stood, extending his hand. "Yulia, this is one of the most confident presentations I've seen this year. Expect a term sheet soon." I shook his hand. "I'll look forward to it." As they left, Ethan lingered behind, whispering, "You planned this," I said. I didn't have to. The truth was always scheduled to arrive. When the door closed, I exhaled, knowing the silence that followed was louder than any applause could ever be. That evening, my phone rang just as I was closing my laptop. Olivia's name lit up the screen, pulsing like a warning. I let it ring twice before answering. Her voice came sharp and shaking. "Julia, what the hell did you do?" I said. "Good evening to you too," she snapped. "Don't play with me. Ethan just told me Evercrest is investing 28 million in your company." "Your company? You let me humiliate you at dinner knowing this?" I said. "I didn't let you do anything. You chose that tone all on your own." Her breath came hard through the phone. "You could have told me." "I tried." I said. "You called it a fantasy. You called me naive. At some point, silence is the only language that fits." She paused, her voice dropping. "You wanted me to find out this way." I said. "No. I just stopped trying to make you listen." You embarrassed me in front of my entire firm, she said. You embarrassed yourself by assuming I had nothing worth saying. You're unbelievable, she whispered. You're successful now. And suddenly I'm the villain? I said quietly. You built that role yourself. She went silent. The kind of silence where words have nowhere left to hide. You don't understand how bad this looks, she said finally. For who? I asked. For you. Or for the story you've been telling about me. Her voice cracked. You always think you're so composed. So untouchable, I said. No. I just learned that self-respect doesn't need an audience. For a long second, all I could hear was her breathing. Then she whispered, You're cold, I said. I'm calm. There's a difference. When I ended the call, the room was still. The silence didn't feel empty, it felt earned. Olivia showed up at my office unannounced. Her expression caught between pride and defeat. She stood in the doorway and said, You win. I looked up from my desk. This wasn't a competition. She stepped closer, her voice trembling. You humiliated me. Yulia, you could have spared me, I said. I didn't humiliate you. I just stopped protecting you from the truth. It's Seymour. She took a breath. Ethan left, she said quietly. He said he couldn't stand how I treated you. I replied, You didn't lose him because of me. You lost him because you kept mistaking cruelty for confidence. Her eyes filled, but she didn't look away. I was wrong, she whispered. I thought success made me untouchable. I said, No one's untouchable. We just choose who we hurt on the way up. Quite. She sank into the chair opposite me. What do you want me to say? I said. Nothing. For once. I don't need your validation. I don't know how to fix this. She said. Then don't. Just sit with what you did. The silence stretched between us. The kind that stripped away every excuse. You're cold, she said again. No, I replied. I'm finally honest. As a video. When she left, she didn't look back. The door closed softly, and the echo felt final. For the first time, I wasn't the one standing in her shadow. The reckoning had already happened, it just waited for her to recognize it. Evercrest closed the deal 2 weeks later. The term sheet signed without hesitation. Ethan sent a short email that read, Proud to be your partner. The industry needs voices like yours. I replied, Thank you. Let's build something that lasts. Olivia didn't reach out again. But one morning, an envelope arrived on my desk. No letterhead. Just a single note in her handwriting. I'm learning to listen. I set it aside and turned back to my screen, where the dashboard tracked every new hospital we'd onboarded that week. The numbers climbed steadily, quiet and certain. I realized I didn't need her apology or her approval. I'd already outgrown both. Some victories don't come with applause. They come with peace. The silence around me wasn't empty anymore. It was respect finally taking shape. Wordless but complete. Thank you for staying with me through this story. If you've ever been underestimated by someone who claimed to know you best, remember, you don't owe them proof. Only progress. Let your success be the conversation they can't escape. Subscribe for more stories of silence turning into power.